Welcome back to West Texas View.
Welcome back to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and we have with us today from the Samaritan Counseling Center, Patrick Ramsey, who is the clinical director, and Patty Peaceclock, who is the development director. And we've been talking about the programs and what happens when a person comes in to be a client. So, Patrick, start with that scenario.
Well, typically, a lot of people call in, 432-563-4144. They get Marlo, usually, who is our intake coordinator, and she directs them to any number of therapists who, our therapists, most of them see a variety of people, but we all specialize in a little bit. So, for example...
so she does the preliminary screening.
Yes.
And then gets you to the right person, and then once, let's say that you're the counselor that's going to be working with, then what happens?
Okay. She arranges an appointment, puts it on her schedule, and then we have an intake session with the person and just listen to them, find out what's going on, see if there's any crisis that needs to be taken care of with them immediately, and then maybe set them up with either something for the crisis or long-term counseling for whatever problem they're having. So, for example, we've got individual and family counseling, premarital, relationship counseling, child, you mentioned at one point in the program, child counseling, and so we have a complete play therapy room. And
that would be worth a trip to the Samaritan Counseling Center just to see the play therapy counseling center.
Oh, it's real set. It's stacked up with toys, and I believe it has sand tray and anything a play therapist could want.
And we're talking about little tiny children up to 10 or so.
Probably. And then they start going more into the adolescent arena. I see more of those. I do see some younger ones too, but we have one therapist who sees most of the younger ones. But military and veterans counseling, we have a PTSD counselor. We have 2 trauma counselors for abuse and PTSD.
And PTSD is post-traumatic syndrome.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Post-traumatic stress.
And so that goes right along with our, our military counseling. Then we've got a Spanish-speaking counselor, so if someone speaks Spanish, they could come to Samaritan and have their own language. Sex addiction, other sexual issues. I think someone said in the program that we don't do clinical dependence, but we do. We don't have an LCDC right now, but we're just hiring someone who's going to get their LCDC license. So we're going to have a lot more things covered. Then, of course, anxiety and depression. And I don't know if you mentioned clergy or congregational care or not. Every 6 months we have a meeting for clergy. And like this one of our therapists went over anxiety and stress, and that's possible. Sometime that we'll even have a group of clergymen that meet. They can get sort of a group, not teaching, but.
Almost a group support.
Yes, that's a great word.
And at one time, and I don't know if you still do this or not, but at one time, several years ago, we had a thing for law enforcement officers, just like the clergy help.
And that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it went over really
there's so much trauma.
Yeah, and there's so much stress that's on the whole family. And so this was, I remember when we did it, it was... there were sessions for the family and then sessions for the law
and goodness knows the family needs, with the life of a police officer.
But the bottom line from a clinical director is if you need counseling, and I guess we could say communications or relationship counseling or self your problems within your own self, that you have a specialist for that area, and you have the availability, because money is not the barrier, and the other barrier that keeps a lot of people is they don't know how to access it. And so they can access it through their minister, through their doctor, or simply to call you directly.
Yes, absolutely.
And we would like to, try to reach out to people to erase the negative stigma that comes with going to counseling. I mean, anybody may need counseling. You don't ever know when it may be a time when you need counseling. You could have a significant loss. I mean, you could, things come up and things happen, but erasing that negative stigma that comes with getting counseling and having, issues of that nature, we hope to erase that. Anybody can come and get help at our center that needs
and
help.
Speaking of that, we're located at the airport, and it's way, a little ways from Midland, and so
and Odessa,
it's private.
So
it's got a lot of privacy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about on about 4 programs ago with Dr. Jane, who is a psychiatrist in town, and he talked about what great strides mental health has made, and how important your mental health is just as important as your physical health.
That's right.
And so taking care of depression, or taking care of relationship problems, or any of the things that you need some counseling for is part of this.
And speaking of what you just said, I just went to a Samaritan conference in Denver, and one of the subject was the healthcare bill. And they talked about how increasingly they're finding that mental health is related to physical health. So if people
take care of their mental health, they won't have the physical health, and
That's
vice versa. Yeah,
it affects it
and
greatly.
that's really important. But getting back to your clinical staff, and I know that not only do you have your full-time clinical staff that works at the Samaritan Counseling Center, but you have consultants from the medical community that come in and advise if you've got special situations that you feel like you'd just like to have a consultant for.
We do. We meet once a month with a group of a psychologist, an internal medicine doctor, and a psychiatrist, and Dr. Marciano, Lineback, and Bartha, and they provide invaluable help in consultation and things regarding medicine that are good for us to know, and really help us be better counselors, to be honest. So.
And to solve special problems that maybe you've got so many, because you don't have just a person with a problem, but everybody around that person.
Yes.
And whether it's a workplace problem that you're counseling on, or a family problem. We're going to have to take another break right now, but we'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation. And in the meantime, be thinking of any questions you've got, and email me any of your comments or questions, because then we will make sure they come back another time and answer them for you. So join us in just a second.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.